me?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So, guys, what are we here for? You know, from a PR, what have you joined the session for? I just want to just quickly go over it. You know, tonight I'm just going to touch a little bit about the PRRB, you know, and then we're going to get into the purpose of the CPD, continuous professional development, why we are here on this specific one. Look at the bigger picture. You know, look at the bigger picture of why CPD is there. Then the professional body requirements, because the PRRB is a professional body. CPD structure. We actually got a guest with us as well, Steve Brown from Durban. He's actually then going to touch on the CPD structure, and then the process that will be followed, and a few examples that would be, and then we're going to close off at the end there. You know, just to give a quick wrap up from that perspective. So again, that's how we're going to go through this evening, guys. But the bigger picture is, yeah, we had to discuss the ins and outs of the continuous professional development. The intention is for you to understand why CPD is important, and for you as an individual, and more importantly, from an industry perspective, and not as an individual. And I understand it's important, you know, we always look at it from an individual point of view, but you'll see later, and I'm going to go into the depth why you need to take yourselves out of your shoes as an individual and put yourself into an industry perspective, which is quite important from a CPD point of view and from where we're going as well. We'll show you that it's as a requirement for being part of a professional body, and most importantly, as I said to you earlier on, we'll be touching on the insight and the process of how you can obtain CPD points. You know, because you know, a lot of queries that we get, a lot of information, people say, you know, it seems daunting and it seems difficult, but in reality it is not, guys, and you'll see tonight why it is not from that perspective. And when I say you guys, please, I'm not excluding the ladies from that perspective. So let me just quickly, for those who don't know me, I'll just switch my webcam on there so you can actually see that I am a real person. Just wait. Now decides my webcam. There we go. Great. Might be just a little bit light there. Just wait until it picks. So there we go. I'm dialing in from a Centurion in Pretoria, and here I am. My name is Lee Smith. For those that don't know me, I'm the current chairman of the PRRB, and I head up the board. I'm a plumber by trade. For those who don't know, I do run a plumbing company, and as part of my spare time, you know, as a volunteer, I assisted the PRRB and also at the Institute of Plumbing. So, but I think what's more importantly is I am a plumber. I'm a qualified plumber, and I do run my own plumbing companies from that perspective. So I understand both sides of the fence. I understand where the plumbers are coming from, and I understand it from an industry perspective. So hopefully, I would hope that I am qualified enough to actually advocate this information to you tonight, and I hope you enjoy the session. One thing I forgot. Anyway, the questions and answers. Please, guys, we encourage you to put questions in. But we got quite a few people in the room, so if we don't get to all your questions, please, we will respond afterwards. I will personally make it a thing of me that I will respond to each and every one. But please keep it to topic. I would like you to keep it to topic about the CPD points. If you start asking us questions about the insurance industry or anything that is not pertaining to the specific topic, you know, it's going to be very difficult for us to answer that specific one. We do have one that just came in now from Barry, and Barry asks, when is CPD points being able to log onto the app? I'm not too sure what you mean by that, but if you are logging onto the app, the web, you know, if you are dialing in through the app onto the webinar, you automatically will be registered and will get the CPD points today. I hope that's that you were asking there, Barry. If not, please send me a quick question or quick response, and I'll try and answer it as we go along. But anyway, I'm going to switch the webcams off, guys, because we're going to go off to this not the webcam, because what happens is we try not to keep the webcams on because it takes a little bit of bandwidth away, and we don't want that to be done, you know, throughout the process. We want to give as much information to the presentation and my voice. Great. Without further ado, let's dive in. So as I said to you, we first want to just get an oversight of who the PRRB is, because, you know, we've advocated this on numerous occasions. It's there on the website. you know, who the PRRB, what it is about, and all that perspective. But people still don't fully understand the PRRB. People think that it's some bunch of guys just sitting there and making up your lives difficult, or making the industry's life difficult. It is not the case. So the PRRB was established in about 2006 through the auspices of the Institute of Plumbing of South Africa. And as you know, the Institute of Plumbing of South Africa is a member organization, and it's the representative of plumbing, the plumbing sector with respect to employer organization. And they realized back then that we needed to bring a register back into South Africa. So it was the birth was through the Institute of Plumbing, and it was funded by the Institute of Plumbing, and the PRRB was established. And the PRRB is a Section 21 non-profit organization. So it's not a company, it's not a profit organization that makes thousands and hundreds of thousands and thousands and hundreds and thousands of rands of money. That's not the case. I can assure you of that. The finances are there to be reviewed. It's a Section 20, as I said, a non-profit organization. We are headed up with a 9-board executive, and that executive it comes from various sectors in the industry. Predominantly, as you can see from there, comes from the plumbers and employers, and these directly are taken from the Institute of Plumbing. 2 representatives from government, 1 representative from JASVIC or the manufacturing environment, 1 representative from the merchants or distributors, vocational educators, and 1 from the insurance sector. So you can see it's a very broad sector that sits on the board, and it's these people that get the information and guide and have the governance around the PRRB. But again, I want to point out the fact is that it is predominantly driven by the plumbers. From that perspective, the board is actually being reconstituted every 4 or 5 years, and it's currently going on its a review structure at this particular point in time. So there will be nominations called for the board in the near future with regards to that. So what the main aim of the Plumbing Industry Registration Board is very simple. You know, on its high level main point of view is that it proactively works to promote plumbing practices that protect the health and safety of the community and the integrity of the water supply and the wastewater systems. And through this, protect the trade of plumbing for those who or wishing to work in the industry. So that's from a high level. We've got a few other objectives, but if anything, that's the main thing that we're driving towards from the PRRB. So without further ado, let's dive into actually what the ins and outs about the CPD. And my co-pilot in the background, Richard, he's helping us out tonight. He's going to just bring up a poll for you. And that poll is, you know, this question on numerous occasions gets asked by many people. And Richard, if you can bring up that poll for me.
Okay, there we go. It's brought up. I think you can see it there.
Great, 100%. Thanks, Richard. Okay, so guys, I know the guys in Bloemfontein, just please take an average there because this is particular for people who are on their PCs. Please just put a response in and let us see what your definition of a bakkie plumber is. I mean, I have a definition of bakkie plumber. In your mind, is a bakkie plumber A person who is not qualified, B, a person that charges less than me, or any person who drives a bakkie, or any person who uses a cell phone number? Which in your mind is the definition of a bakkie plumber? And while we're working on that, Patrick did ask, do the members still need to fill in the PRRB form, or will they get it as soon as they register for the webinar? Patrick, good question. We will make sure that this register will go, and your register there, they would not have to fill in the form. We will make sure that the register goes straight, and anybody who is registered on the system and from Patrick's listing will straight away get the CPD points. So you will not have to fill in the form. Thanks, Patrick. And then the question from Barry was, what I was saying is that when we'll be able to log CPD points for all events on the Plumbers app? Well, thanks, Barry. We are working on a new process, and hopefully in the next, I would say next 3 months, we'll have something on that. Yes. We're going to touch on that later a little bit further as well, to making life easier to log the COCs as well.
Okay, Lee, there's about 62% that have voted. I think we've given enough time. Huh? I'm going to close the poll.
Good,
okay.
Great, 100%.
And I'm going to share those results with you.
Great. Okay, great. So there we go. Nice. Is that 84%? Sorry, my eyes are not that good. I can't see that.
84% of them. Yes.
So is what we're saying is that a person, the definition of a bucky plumber is a person that is not qualified. That's the definition of a bucky plumber. Thank you very much. Thank you. You can close that up for me.
Okay.
Thank you. And truthfully, I was not expecting anything else. I was expecting an answer, because that's what, if you go around to the various, you speak to the various plumbers, this is what they actually say, And the thing is, the reality is, I'm just waiting for this. So the value that the qualified plumber has over the bucky plumber is the value that he has added to himself through his qualification. I'm going to repeat that. And when I say his, I'm meaning his and hers. The value that the qualified plumber has over the bucky plumber is the value that he has added to himself through his qualification. And that's the proof. 84% of that said that it is the qualification that makes the difference. But let me ask you something. Does that stop once you have your qualification? What are you as a qualified plumber selling or creating value for yourself after your qualification is in your possession and in your life? Let's turn it another way around. Let's assume we are all qualified plumbers. So what makes me different to the next guy? What makes it? It's what value I want to add through myself going forward. In saying that, it says, as a service provider or as an employee, we are always seeking to put more money in our back pockets. Isn't that so? Think about it. We're in business to put money in our back pockets. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. We're not there for love and charity. Or let's rather put it, the majority of us are there in business to put money in the back pocket, right? So the question you need to ask yourself is, what value are you adding to that equation? So you want to put more money into your back pocket, right? But what are you adding to that equation to create that more value, right? If you're going to focus your energy on time and doing the same thing all the time and not creating new value, you're not going to see any more money. It's a reality. And I'm talking about in the big picture. You can go and steal money, or you can be devious and go and try and crook somebody out of their money. But in general, if you don't create value, right, you're not going to see more value, i.e. in the form of money. And this includes asking money from a customer to asking money from your employer. I'm going to repeat this. This includes asking money from your employer. So many of us in this session are either employees or you are employers. So now I'm an employer, yes, and I always say to my employees, if you want to raise or you want to go and increase your rand value of what I must pay you or the business needs to pay you, you need to increase the value within yourself as well. So for you, so I would encourage my employees is, don't come and ask me for money. Come and tell me how you increase the value, and in turn, by increasing the value in yourself, you are bringing a better service to the business, and through bringing a better service or added value to the business now can create more value and therefore can pay you more, right? So bring in more money, and how do you enrich it? And by this, enrich yourself. And the same principle of wanting to become qualified plumber. I mean, if you look at the industry, right, the sector talks about, employers always want to think about your employees. People always want to become qualified. Why? The fundamental reason is because in their minds they think becoming qualified will earn them more money. No, it's not because you become qualified will earn you more money. It's because you've enriched yourself through a value proposition, which in turn should bring more money, right? But the key point is that you need to bring in value to see more value. Don't think it's going to create out of fresh air from that point of view. Here's a good example, just to bring this a little bit down to I wouldn't say understandable base. And I'm going to use the specifically, and please don't shoot me, the insurance sector. And the reason why I say the insurance sector, because when Steve and myself and the grouping was going around the country when we started initiating the plumbing or the PRRB, the number one question that kept on coming out from the plumbers, right, was how do we increase the insurance rates? How do we increase the insurance rate? How do we get more money out from the insurances? Right? And my response to that was very simple. I said, we're going to do nothing. We, as a sector, are going to do nothing with respect to going to the insurance and say, you must increase your rates. And now that might shock you. But what we're going to do for the sector is we're going to increase the sector's value proposition, and as a result, increase the success of the sector. I'm going to repeat that. What are we going to do is increase the sector's value proposition, and as a result, increase the success of the sector. And we can start seeing that shift. We can start seeing the shift that people, I mean, there's a lot of questions coming in and talking about, you know, qualified plumbers and the rates. You're already starting to see that shift, guys, because what is happening is that, yes, people are adding more value, and through more value, you're requesting more money, right? And that is exactly the shift that we are continuing. Because it's pointless going to somebody and say, I want more money. And I think I'm just advocating, I'm just repeating myself. You need to create value, and through the creation of value, get success. Or put it another way, drive value, and the success will come. And through this whole process, we've been protecting the plumbers. Through this whole process, as I said, drive the value proposition. We are protecting the plumbers' qualification. Another example which people don't really pick up on is that the solar energy sector. You remember a couple of years ago, or I mean, the solar is still around. When the solar came about, what did we all do? We all rushed to become qualified, right? We all rallied behind solar to get that knowledge, and we went on the training sessions. But did we? Because we saw the opportunity, and to prepare for that opportunity, we created and added value to ourselves, and as an industry, we added value to it. So the examples that I have given is a natural process. All the examples I've given, we want to automatically enrich ourselves. We want to add value to ourselves. And guys and ladies, that is literally what continuous professional development is all about. We do it naturally. It's a natural process that happens. So Patrick, I'm not Patrick, sorry. Richard, our next poll is coming up. And if you can just launch that one for us.
All right.
So I'm just going to wait for it to come up. So the question is, do you believe or think a plumber is a professional expert in his or her occupational field, like a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer or an architect or an engineer? Do you think we're professionals in our own right? Do you think we're experts? Just like engineers. We studied, we did our 4-year apprenticeship, and 3 years, and whatever it is, we worked in the trenches. Yeah. So I'm asking you, do you believe or think a plumber is a professional expert in his or her occupational field?
68%, Lee. We're hitting just over 70%, so give it a couple of seconds.
Great. While you're there, while everybody's just thinking about it, Kurt asked about the registration. Getting your CPD points. Do I have to always fill out a form for CPD registration? Not necessarily, Kurt. You have to just check which each course it is. Like, for instance, if you do, like, as a good example, if you attend a PRRB, so not a PRRB, an IOPSA workshop or whatever it is, they've got registers, they will send it in. Some of them are, some of them not, so you just need to verify if and when, whatever one you are working on, or whichever workshop you are in. Okay.
Lee, I'm going to close this poll, yeah. I think it's 70, about 80% voted, and I'll share the results now.
Good. Great. Just give me the figure there, because I can't see it.
Okay. Well, the overwhelming majority was a yes vote at 95% of those who voted, and 5% of the votees said no. They don't believe that we're professionals. So that's the 95 to 5.
So we'll just take the majority and say, guys, hey, we want to be seen as experts. We want to be seen experts in the field, and which rightly so, guys. I'm not ashamed about it that I'm a plumber. I'll stand up. You know, just to give you an indication, in SANS 10400, SANS 10400 for those, just quickly, it's the National Building Regulations. It's the regulations that the building inspector uses to measure it. And the only trade mentioned in the National Building Regulations is plumbing. No other trade, it's only plumbing, because you have such an important responsibility behind that specific point of view. So we just see 95% of people are saying yes. We want to be viewed as experts in our field. But now the question is, so if this is the case, if 95% say that, we need to ask ourselves, what makes a professional or an expert in his or her field? What makes it? What makes a sector as a collective to be viewed as a professional sector? The doctors, their professional environment. The dentists, the engineers. Why do we look up and say they're a professional environment? Right? I can hear a lot of people saying, you know what? It's about their knowledge, their training, their competency, ethics, etc. And you know what? That's 100% correct. It's because of their knowledge, their training, their competency. And it's interesting to note, when you travel around the country, and you can speak to all the different, what I'm saying, the regional chairmen of the regions of IOPSA, when they have their meetings, or when we engage with the plumbers, or we speak to them, the number one request that comes out from plumbers, what do you think it is? It's training, training, and more training. That is the request. It's a continuous request that we want training and we want training. However, if this is the case, now look at this. This is some stats I want to share with you. We need to ask ourselves the question, why is it that we want to be viewed as a profession when the following stats are coming out? Now, for those who don't know, because many of you, I think most of you have already got your PRRB registration, but anybody as of October last year, when joining the PRRB, there's a new process in place where we are requesting a competency exam to be written. It's a written exam. It's an online multiple choice. In other words, tick A, B, C, or D, right? And before everybody shouts at us and say, but the exam is most probably the most difficult exam, I can assure you it is not, number one. Number two is, it's an open book test. In other words, take all your books in, guys, and use every single book that you've got in your arsenal to ask the questions or to answer the questions. And what is the assessment about? The assessment is simply about the standards that you apply in the industry on a day-to-day basis. So here's some shocking results, guys. And remember, we said that we want to be viewed as a professional, as a profession, as an experts in our industry. But the current failure rate that are coming through is 63%. People are entering the exams, 63% of them failing. But what's even more shocking, and remember, guys, ladies, this is an open book test. It's not a closed book, and it's a 40-point exam or assessment over an hour, online, multiple choice. 63% failure, but what's more shocking, as I said, that failure rate is at an average of 22%. So people are only achieving 22%, 1 1/5 of what they should know. And I said, it's about the standard. And further to this, 83% of all current inspections that get carried out, 83% result in rudimentary basic refixes. And I'm talking rudimentary. I'm not talking, you know, guys, that little clause that was disappeared in the bottom section of page 244, whatever. It's rudimentary failures that it. Now I sit here and I say, guys, we want to be viewed as experts, but we don't want to add that value to our industry. We don't see ourselves, or we don't have that value within ourselves to be seen out there. So, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to just take a step back for a moment, and I want you to put yourselves in the shoes of the PRRB. Because, as I said in the beginning, it's not about you. Yes, well, everybody, you know, I understand that it's about my life, it's about my family, it's about important. But as I said, just put that aside for a bit, guys. Sorry, guys, I hear that I knocked my little thing on my thing like that. So, Richard, sorry, guys, it was my mistake. I got a little thing on my microphone and I knocked it and I switched myself off. Where did you lose me?
Just about a minute ago. So we were talking about, you were just saying,
can I just take this page?
Yes,
let me take this page again. I'll take this page.
That's it.
Okay, great. So I'll, as I said, I want you to move. I want you for a moment to put yourselves in the shoes of the PRRB. I want you to take a step back. Don't think about yourselves. You know, and I've always advocated that you are the most important person in your life and your family. Don't ever forget that. It's not about the next person. It's not about. But I want you to just step back for a moment and put yourselves in the PRRB shoe and look at it from an industry's perspective. Look at it as a collective and a whole. So how do we, as the PRRB, so let's say you're at the board, you're sitting at the board, you're one of the board members, and you're sitting around the table, and the question is put to you. How do we, as the PRRB, build trust with the end user in the profession of plumbing? And I'm going to repeat myself. How do we, as the PRRB, or the plumbing industry, or the sector, build trust with the end user? And when I say the end user, I'm talking about the customer, the engineers, the building control officers, everybody who is not part of our sector. How do we build trust with that end user in our sector? When we as a sector are not willing to act or like the professionals. I mean, there's an example. We sit there, we say, you know what, we accept the fact that we get 63% failure at 22%, at a 22% rate. It's not good enough. How do we go out as the PRRB and advocate, or let's even take the Institute of Plumbing. I'm going to throw them into the mix as well. How do they go out and they say, guys, use us as a profession, because you'll be reassured that we are the best thing since sliced cheese. What happens with that? How do we go out and advocate that from a PRRB perspective? We need to know that our constituency that we are representing, that when we advocate that, when we go out and we say to the industry, use a PRRB plumber or an AOPSA member or whatever it is, that you are assured that you're going to get the best service and that you're going to get the best expertise and the best professional. And remember what we said, a professional is based on their qualification. We just proved that. We went through that whole step. You guys proved to me that it's all about the qualification and the knowledge that we have built up in that. So, in our industry, our talk does not walk the talk. How can we as a sector demand more value when as a sector as a whole we are not adding value? We do not walk the talk. How can we as a sector demand more value when we as a sector as a whole, remember as a whole, not you as an individual, as a whole are not willing to add value to ourselves? We as an industry need to uplift ourselves. We need to all move in unison and say, yes, we want to be recognized as an industry, as experts in our industry. And we can't do it ourselves. I can't do it. The PRLB can't do it in its lonesome. We do it as a collective. So let's move on. So here again, I brought up the pictures of the doctors, the lawyers, the dentists, the architects, the engineers, all those nice guys, all the guys that are deemed professional. And there's a whole lot of other sectors as well, right? What do all these various professions have in common? Interesting. Do you know what they have in common? All of them. They have a professional register and they have requirements to which they have to adhere to. They have to have a register or a license to practice in. I was this morning at the dentist because I knocked my tooth out, and I said, and I was speaking to the dentist after he drilled my mouth to gone and Murin gone. I asked him about his CPD points, right? And he said, yes, definitely. There's no doubt about it. We have to do continuous professional development because that is expected of the profession. And more so, not even forget about the expected of the professional. We need to know and keep up with technologies and changes in the industry because that's what happens. But a little bit more onto that later. In the same way, guys and ladies, is that we have the professionals, the doctors and whatever, having a professional body. The plumbers was recognized as a professional occupation. And for this reason, the PRLB is the professional body, had received professional body status in terms of Act 67 of 2008. Now, for those guys online, right, there is a little document that you can download. There's a little handouts. There's a little thing that says handouts. Please just click on those handouts, and you can actually download this document that I'm going to just go a little bit into. Now, this document that is there is actually the policy document for SAQA. In other words, and who is SAQA? SAQA is a government organization, it's the South African Qualifications Authority. They oversee the whole qualification in all the various qualifications in South Africa. So they look at the professions across the board, from doctors all the way down to the little brick, I'm going to say the little bricklayers, I don't want to deem moral, all the way down to grade 0, if you want to put it that way. They oversee the requirements for that specific one. And we have professional body status. It was given to us in 2012, bestowed upon us. And further to that, we've just recently had our review. In other words, every 5 years they come in and they review and see how we do things and make sure that we are doing things correctly, etc., etc. And we have just been extended another 5 years as the professional body for the sector. But I want to just quickly, instead of, it's a very nice document if you want to take your time and read the things, right? I want you to, but if you want to read it, feel free to read it or just browse through it. Very nice document, as I said, to read. But I want to just quickly just extract some points out of it very quickly. Professional body means a body of expert practice in an occupational field. Professional designations, and so you might ask, what is a designation? Licensed plumber, that's a designation. You know, the title that you've got at the PRLB, that's what's referred to as a designation. It means a title or status conferred by a professional body, i.e. the PRLB, in recognition of a person's expertise and or right to practice in an occupational field. Further, the document says the professional body needs to protect the public understanding of and trust in the profession through the establishment of a registration system for the recognition of professional bodies and the registration of the professional designation. So it's basically said for the public, you need to go and have a register of professions that meet that are on your register, meeting the requirements of that professional body. Encourage social responsibility and accountability with the professions. Promote the protection of the public by the professional bodies from malpractice. related to the fulfillment of the professional duties and responsibilities of the professionals registered with them. A professional registration indicates registration of the individual and the right to practice in the particular field of expertise, right? Retention of the status is dependent on compliance with the stated requirements of the professional body concerned. In other words, when you were a licensed plumber, to join or get the designation of licensed plumber, you were supposed to meet a certain criteria, one of which is you needed to be a qualified plumber, right? Which was set, you got your qualification through your trade or whatever it is. That was the requirement set, and therefore you met those specific requirements. But more importantly, and this is where it comes in, guys, it includes, as a retention, requirements, continuing professional development, CPD, and adherence to a code of professional ethics and conduct. So guys, it's not a few people that in the PRRB that sit around the table, the board that sit around the table and said, you know what, this is what we're going to do and we're going to put this in. As a professional body, and we just agreed, 95% of us said we are professionals. So therefore, we are the professional body, and therefore, we want to be recognized as professional bodies, and therefore, it's a requirement for us to meet that requirement. So if we as a sector wish to be recognized as professional, CPD is here to stay. It's a requirement, guys. We need to do it, ladies and gentlemen. And let's just look at it a different way. You see the value in your license, your PRRB license. And your license is not a matter of just paying some money. It's about showing and building and maintaining the value behind that license. I'm going to repeat that. You see the value in your license. And your license is not just a matter of just taking some money out of your pocket and just paying it over and saying, oh, I've ticked that box, now I've got my license. That's not what it's about. As a sector, it's about building and maintaining the value behind that license. And that's what the PRRB is doing, because the PRRB must be seen as a quality band for the whole sector. So, we got another poll coming up. Richard?
Okay, I'll get that done.
So we can just, so when this one comes up.
Okay, there it is.
Thanks, Richard. So, as an employer, do you encourage development of your, forget about CPD, forget about everything, guys. As an employer, do you encourage development of your employees? Or, as an employee, do you want to develop yourself further? I'll repeat it. As an employer, do you not encourage development of your employees? Do you not say to you guys, hey guys, I want you to learn how to solder? When we had a whole discussion today about soldering. Would you believe it? You know, that added old thing. I said to them, you know what, we train people on soldering, we train them training, but they still not do soldering. I don't know. It's crazy, that one. But we want to develop our employees further because it makes our business better, it makes our lives easier, and it reaches the employee himself. Okay, Richard, how are we doing there?
Okay, so we've got almost 60%, 63% voted, 70%, 75%, so it's climbing rapidly, so we can leave it open for a couple of seconds. It's stagnated, so I think we'll close it down.
100%.
I'll close it and share, and the results are 98% of the voters said yes, or the answer was yes, they encourage development, and as an employee, they want to develop themselves.
Okay, great, 100%. So, well, there's the result, guys. So you want to develop your employee, and you want to develop yourself, which is a natural process. I mean, you know, they say you can never teach an old dog, a new dog, old tricks. Well, that's not right. And I continuously develop myself. So brilliant, guys. 98% of us just acknowledged continuous professional development is important. 98% of us in the room said, guys, it's important because we must develop ourselves further. So now this is very important. This is very important. So in reality, you're already doing it. You're already doing continuous professional. You just said it. But it's just making sure that the development is in the right direction. That's all the PRRB is doing, is saying, guys, we want you to develop yourself, because if you develop yourself, right, you're going to develop the industry. But please, don't go and learn how to bake cookies or go and bake cake, because it's not going to help the profession in the long run. So professional development will happen automatically, but just please do it in this direction or do it in that direction. That's all we're saying. We're saying just do it in the right direction. And so if you do a soldering course or whatever it is, and Steve is going to get into that now. He's going to look at actually applying CPD in the sector, and he's going to take it down to a practice. So if you're doing, and I'm going to go back to that soldering, if you're doing it, and I'm going to use a brand name, if you're going to be doing a soldering course with Maxell, just ask Maxell, hey Maxell, for your employees, is the CPD accredited? Yes, it is. Okay, great, 100%. Let's go and send in, Maxwell will send the register in and say, Lee Smith has attended a CPD point on soldering, and he can get the points. It's as simple as that, because we agreed, 98% of us said CPD is important and we encourage it. Let me rephrase it. Development is important. Development of oneself and the employees is important, and therefore we just acknowledge that continuous professional development is important. Anyway, without any further ado, I'm actually going to invite Steve on if he hasn't fallen asleep in the background, right? And Steve, are you there? Steve? Yeah, just switch your microphone on, Steve. Okay, just give us a few seconds, guys. We're just going to quickly find out where Steve is. So if you just hold on 2 seconds. Try it now, Steve.
Ali, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Steve. Remember, it's the big green button, Steve. Okay.
Yeah, I know
Great.
that could not be, but I was muted by you, so let's just get it out there that it was not me, okay? It was not user, it was organizer. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out tonight. For those that don't know me, Steve Brown, 41 years in this game, and certainly very instrumental in terms of where we are, in terms of IOPSA, PILB. And just to touch base and support what Lee's just been talking about now, CPD is important to where we are to develop ourselves, and just to make sure that we continue learning on a daily basis. I think as Lee is, I think that all of us, we certainly learn something every day. And I just want to support in terms of the CPD. Last week I was invited to speak at one of the professional bodies. They had a conference here in Durban over 2 days, and there was 250 guys there that were there for the CPD point. So again, to all professions and what we do. So again, we're just going to go in terms of the development activities, in terms of conferences, workshops, so that's in category 1. Then we've got work-based in terms of activities, in terms of membership, mentorships, certificates of compliance, and obviously individual activities in terms of technical writing, lecturing, volunteer. So there's 3 different categories that we have. And I think that in terms of where I sit within IOPSA and the PILB is on a daily basis, I'm involved in terms of bits of arbitration, assisting in terms of where a plumber has gone out to site, and because of his lack of understanding of the standards. And I think we need to realize, guys, that our training over the last sort of 17, 18, 19 years, which was touched on by the Department of Higher Education and Training at the workshop that we had in Durban last week, was very key in terms of the lack and the standard in terms of training. So as we see how plumbing's gone, you know, they're now being taught fundamentals in terms of theoretical, in terms of standards. There's very little info provided to the apprentices or the learners that are going through this in terms of standards. And again, the standards, I often say in the webinars that I put together, is I think we look at the standards as a threat, but it really is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to better ourselves. It's an opportunity for us to distinguish ourselves from the guys that we're pricing against, people that don't understand the standards. So knowledge is key, and I think that's very key in terms of where we are. So these development activities that we have, as an example, we have workshops, there's conferences, and when we talk about accredited training, I just want to touch on that in terms of what Lee was saying with regards to where PIRB and IOPSA is in terms of manufacturers. We've all said it, it's about taps, pipes, geysers, whatever. But what we've tried to do in terms of that training to be accredited is what we've tried to initiate with the manufacturers and those importers in terms of product is line their product up with the reference to the standard. So, for example, if it was a geyser, a valve, or a hot water cylinder, we would say to the manufacturer, please include standards with your presentation that you're doing with your product, so that, again, the benefit is there in terms of, yes, the product, and this is how the product needs to be installed, and these are the relevant standards that apply to that installation. So I think it's very key that, as Lee said, is that if you're going to any one of the manufacturers and they're doing a workshop or some time of training, is to make sure that it has been accredited. It's not to say that the product that they are doing or what they're going, they certainly know their stuff in terms of their product. But for benefit of the learners out there, the plumbers out there, what we're saying is incorporate your standards into your presentations, so that those in attendance will understand, yes, this is a geyser, and this is the reason why we actually connect it up this way. And you'll be surprised on a daily basis how many times I've had to try and go and defend a contractor. I have one currently going on here in Durban at the moment with over a 7 million rand unit, and there's 5 of them, where the plumber has been dictated to in terms of non-compliance. And because of his knowledge or lack of knowledge in terms of understanding the standards, he's plumbed it, designed it, and this is possibly going to litigation. So again, individuals that don't understand the standards do put themselves at risk. And I think for me, I see it as a value add to myself and to those guys out there. So accredited training, very key in terms of that skills program. Manufacturer training, as we said earlier, in terms of accreditation, occupational health and safety toolbox talks. I think that's a key importance in terms of safety with our staff. And again, we would want our staff to understand in terms of that. And again, we have Plumbing Africa. There's an assessment in terms of Plumbing Africa, again, to go through to pick up those points. So again, these are the type of developments that they have in Category 1. So Lee, if we go on to our next one in terms of Category 2.
Yeah, Steve, I just want to add something to this, because a lot of stuff, I'm just reading some of the questions in the background, and the perception is that, they all have to go to webinars. They all have to do webinars, and they have to pay the money, and they all have to do it. So just please explain, elaborate a little bit on that, Steve.
Okay, I think, in terms of where it was, and I'll go back to a communication that I had with a registered plumber last week, and I think that in terms of the info that he was doing, it's not all about webinars. I think that what we need to understand is that, yes, there are webinars out there. We need to understand that in terms of the information that's provided, we correlate the information coming through from complaints, issues, and identifying areas where the plumbers or the contractors are falling down. So we try and develop that training to deliver specifics in terms of what the industry requires. So again, you'll see that there are webinars in terms of solar, geysers, etc., etc. So in terms of this particular individual, he had not logged any of his points, and he was up in arms that there was a possibility of maybe being suspended, and he was running out of time. But when the local secretary actually sat down and explained to him what we're going through here now, he had already done them. I think he got 19 points, by virtue of the fact of the activities that he had done on a daily basis. So it's not all about the webinars. I think that it's key that it's not all about you have to attend webinars to get your points. There we're showing the activities in terms of development, and we'll touch on the others. So let's get it very clear that in terms of the webinars, you don't have to attend that if you're already comfortable that you understand geysers or heat pumps or solar, whatever. But for those guys out there that maybe haven't done the course or quite don't understand in terms of solar or heat pumps, or any changes in terms of the standards, then go and have a look at it. And there's a variety of courses out there. I mean, just in particular, Patrick Gordon down in Bloem and Hart, all the guys down in Bloemfontein, again, is doing a course in terms of pipe sizing. So again, I was involved in an arbitration down in Cape Town where, again, it got back to flow rates and a 32 million rand house that didn't have water when somebody opened a tap downstairs. And it went back to the plumber not understanding the dynamics of plumbing, pipe sizing, etc. So again, being left up to that. So just going back at it and looking at it, these are the type of things that you can do, but it's not all about the webinars. I think, guys, let's just get that very clear. You can obtain your points in the ways that we're showing you now. So Lee, if we just jump on to our next one.
Okay, Steve.
Yep. Okay. There we go. As we said there, the courses must be accredited. And I think it's very key that we make sure and ask the question, because again, if we don't drive it from industry, in terms of compliance with this, and what are we trying to do? We're just trying to add value in terms of the product. I think Patrick down there will tell me, we discussed this before, 80% of the comebacks that manufacturers have are not related to products. So, you know, where we put in a warranty claim, it's not about the product, it's about the installation. So again, very key that we install the products correctly in the manner in which the manufacturer wants, but also in terms of the standards. Then we go into our next activity as an example, issuing a certificate of compliance. Again, if you look at the points that go through in terms of those COCs, mentoring a learner. Lee's just spoken now about your employees that are there, that you're mentoring them. There are some individuals out there who are mentoring small micro business, assisting them in terms of their businesses. Attending an IOPSA evening or an event. Again, you know, it's for some guys, and I know there's guys out there that are in regions that it's impossible to get there, or if it's not impossible, there's a huge cost to that. But again, it's not the only way. I think very clear that yes, for those guys in the regions, it's great, and where there's outlying areas where meetings are being held, super, but we understand that there are individuals that can't get to those. We've developed practical guides. You know, if you go, guys, have had a look at it. We've looked at practical guides in terms of SANS 10254, 1010.6, 1352, drainage, etc. Now, what we've done with those is taken the standards and sort of condensed them, so it's not to replace the standards, but it's a practical guide that can go in your cubby hole. You can purchase them. They're not overly expensive, and I'll tell you now that the value that you get from that booklet isn't like an introduction, but a very condensed sort of guide that we've taken all the pertinent, relevant points. Enterprise development, again, in terms of what you're doing in your business, and obviously member of IOPSA. If you're an owner of a plumbing company and you are there, then that membership obviously would give you points in terms of that. So again, there's a multitude of issues in terms of that with COCs, mentoring, attending IOPSA evenings and functions, practical guides, enterprise development, membership of IOPSA. So if you go on and you'll have a look at that, I haven't put the points down to it, but a lot of that is time-based. If we go back to the activities in the first one, it's basically time-based. So again, there's the type of things, and there'll be a large majority of you in attendance tonight that have already issued COCs, you're already mentoring a learner, you've attended IOPSA evening, you possibly bought the practical guides, you may be doing some form of enterprise development, and you may be a member of IOPSA. So if I look at just those categories there in terms of the points, you're possibly halfway there already in terms of the requirements of the CPD. So I think it's very key that yes, these things are important, but again, we need to add value in terms of where we are and where you are as an individual. So we go on to our next category, Lee, in terms of our next slide.
Here you go, Steve.
Right, thank you. So again, it just takes a little bit of time just to swing through, so I haven't got it up and coming through yet, but it'll take time. But I think the key thing for me is that unfortunately, sometimes I'm put in a position where, for those guys that know me, I am the plumber's plumber. I mean, that's my game. Plumbing is where I'm passionate about, and I support and fight for the plumber's rights, you know, throughout. But sometimes it's very difficult to defend somebody that's done an installation or carried out work that is totally non-compliant, and there's no way that you can help them, and the guy is out for hiding second to none. So I think that it's very key. And Lee, I just want to touch on a point. I went to go up to Northern Natal the other day, and I'd done an audit on an individual about a year ago, and I must say the work was not great. In fact, it wasn't, yeah, there was a lot of problems. A year later, I went up and met this individual and checked the job that he had done. And I must admit that it was chalk and cheese. I was so impressed. And, you know, for those that know me, yeah, it doesn't take much to do that in terms of that. And I said, wow, I really am impressed. The job was not 100%, but it was chalk and cheese. And when I asked him what was the difference, and I was so chuffed that I put it out on the had a chat with Lee and a couple of guys, and saying I was so impressed with what this guy had done. And when I asked him, he said to me, the CPD, attending workshops, attending the webinars that are free in terms of standards, has assisted his business, assisted himself as a person, and it's actually affected his bottom line, that his snag lists are now less because he's now invested in himself. So I just want to share that, Lee, that we often see a lot of negativity coming out of CPD, or maybe from a misunderstanding point of view. But to me, it showed that CPD is working in that individual's business because he's taken responsibility for it. So, you know, that's just something for nothing. But in terms of this, we've got individual activities. As an example, submit a technical article. So again, you know, if you're out there and you see something interesting, or there was areas, we're not all authors. If you're like me, you battle the spell, but that's not about the spelling. It's about what you're putting together. Downloading the Plumbers app. Prepare and deliver a CPD training workshop. So there might be some training in your area, some expertise that you have. If you take Richard, for example, in terms of the Western Cape, he sits there on that committee, and you know, his technical expertise is valid. We've got the guys down all over the country, so they part and parcel of that. Recognized voluntary committee member. So again, sitting on the committee of the region, being a coordinator in another region, you know, just to start adding value, and then obviously registering with the PIRB. So those are types of examples that are there in terms of individual activities that you can do. So technical writing, I think, yes, we can all WhatsApp and send messages, but again, it's delivering and adding value through that's going to add value to a plumber. So if you've seen an installation that's incorrect, you can understand where he's gone wrong, and you write a bit of a report about that. It gets checked to make sure the content is correct, because again, we need to make sure that it's there. But the technical articles is something that maybe not for everybody, but downloading the Plumbers app, preparing and delivering workshops, recognized as a volunteer, and registered with the PIRB. So again, just an example in terms of category 3, in terms of individual activities. Right, Lee, we jump on to the next one. Sorry, everybody, Lee's the bus driver up there. They're all too scared that I'll push the wrong button and disconnect you all or something. But yeah, that's where we are in terms of that. All right, so what have we had a look at? Here's two guys that, you know, they've looked at it and they've attended webinars. The guy on the left, you know, he's got a big smile. They've got their points. They're happy. You know, if we're unhappy, we'd have a picture of them throwing those Bob Jones at us. But again, they've attended webinars. They've attended IOPSA meetings. They've had a technical article published. They've attended IOPSA workshops, developed CPD training, or an IOPSA committee member. They've issued 30 certificates of compliance, and so they've got their 2 points. They've purchased practical guides. So this individual sitting on the other side there, he's got 37 points. Then we've got the guy on the other side who's registered with PIRB. He's issued 45 COCs. He's attended webinars. He's got a point out of there. He attended 2 of those. He attended an IOPSA workshop, so he's got 3. He's mentored and registered with a registered learner. He's got 5 points for that. He's attended 3 IOPSA meetings. He's got his 6 points. He's purchased the practical guide, and he's got 2 points. He's downloaded the app for the plumber. He's got 2 points. And he's read the Plumbing Africa and answered the questions that come through in terms of Plumbing Africa, and he's got 3 points. So there, that individual sitting there at 27 points. So again, 0.5 CPD points for this session. So again, as they're picking up in terms of where we are. So there is an explanation in terms of what these individuals could have done. This is a hypothetical, but basically just to get an understanding of how easy it is in terms of that. So there might be guys that say, well, okay, I'll attend webinars, or I can't go to an IOPSA meeting. But if you brought those 2 together and aligned them into one, there would certainly be ways that you would be able to obtain those points quite easily, with very little effort over and above what you're doing on a daily basis. So I think that's very key that these are not difficult in terms of obtaining. But again, as Lee said, as a professional body, we need to make sure that those points are there. Now, what I've done here is just understanding CPD points. So while Lee and I were discussing this last week, we've looked at this, and Lee made a statement in terms of low-hanging fruit. And what I've tried to do here is just explain, what we're doing in terms of why we've done certain criteria for that. I think it's common knowledge, and it's an inherent in all of us, that if we can get something the easy way, then we'll basically do that. So for the low-hanging fruit, that's the easy one. We don't have to stretch. We don't have to do anything. So those categories that are quite simple, yes, have some points, but then we've got the bulk of the fruit in the middle, and again, we've got the sweet fruit. So again, we know, because again, it's within our nature, that if we're going to do something, let's go to the point of least resistance and try and pick up that low-hanging fruit, or for that matter, that lying on the ground. But really, are we adding that value? The sweeter things, or the issues that are really going to add value to us and be the best, is that in the middle and at the top. So we've had to spread those points out. And again, this is discussion through IOPS and through the PIRB committee or the board, making sure that we try and spread that load in terms of obtaining the points. If it was just for A, B, or C, then it would certainly be easy. There'd be no value. And how are we going to have that value chain and be recognized as that professional body that we talk about without there being value added in terms of understanding certain standards, changes, etc. So again, just a basic understanding to identify why we put certain categories to that continuous professional development points. Lee, in terms of our next slide. Right, here we have it. We've all seen water run the way that it runs. And again, for any river, burst pipe, whatever we've seen, waste pipe leaking, it takes the least form of a resistance. It's nature, and it's in our nature to do that. So we're just making sure that we just cover all the bases in terms of covering the plumber, covering the guy, to make sure that he's educated, trained in terms of changes, standards, etc., that when he's out on site, he's confident, he understands what's going on. That information gets relayed back down to those employees if you're an employer. And again, there's a value. There's a massive value in terms of the standards by understanding where they are. It amazes me that, and all of you individuals here tonight, 2001, SANS 10254 became the law, okay, in terms of how a geyser must be installed. We are now 17 years or 16 years down the line, and if I ask you guys to put your hands up and say, does every geyser that you go to comply with SANS 10254? And the answer would be no, okay, so because we see it on a continuous basis. And the other thing is that we have is non-compliance, and I think this is key for some of the guys out there that are registered and may have submitted certificates of compliance, and where they've been audited or failed. One, how can you write a report on something, or how can you write the non-compliance if you don't know what the compliance is? So if you don't understand the standards, or you don't know the standards, ticking that box and saying in terms of, yes, it complies, has consequences. So by not knowing the standards, how can you report on it? And that's something I've tried to advocate going all the way through, is that if you don't understand something, how can you report on it? So we see a lot of individuals, not necessarily through the PIRB, where they've done a plumbing installation, and yes, now it becomes an issue, and we brought in to go and inspect and report, and again, it becomes a massive problem. And I think, in terms of the Latin, ignoratio juris non executat, okay, ignorance is not an excuse. And I think this is something that we need to understand, is that in the event that if you do something wrong and you go to court, for example, if the cops lock you up and you end up in court, and you say, well, I didn't know. Ignorance is not an excuse. And I think in terms of the plumbing sector, saying, well, I didn't know is not an excuse. In terms of saying, well, there's no info out there for me to obtain this information, well, again, that's why we're trying to develop this. I think for individuals, some guys are anti-webinars, but we also need to understand it's not about us, as what Lee said. It's about industry. And I think for industry, we need to understand that there are guys out there in the outlying areas that are just as keen and have the right as you to actually have knowledge. And for that, we listen to industry, because one of the guys said to us, we asked the question, where would you like training to be? And he said, in my house. So other than taking you all to this individual's house for a cup of coffee, the next best thing is to actually provide you with webinars that you can sit in your own house at your own time. And again, going back to times, these times vary. So we try wherever possible to accumulate or accommodate individuals in terms of time. So they are in the mornings, lunch times, afternoons, evenings, early evenings, late evenings. But again, going back to you guys and individuals, if you believe that this time is the best or it's not the best or whatever, communicate that with us, that we'll be able to deliver in a time and a manner that is going to help you. But I think ignorance is not an excuse. And I think, Lee, that's where we need to get to in terms of where we are. Education is knowledge and key. And I think that's so important in terms of where we are. I think we're also important that, a lot of comments have come through and say, does any other trade do this? And to be quite honest and blunt, no. No other trade is as far advanced as where plumbing is. And I think that goes back to credit of the individuals that support our industry, the guys that go shoulder to the wheel. As Lee said, those volunteers on a daily basis out there taking control of plumbing. If we don't do it, somebody else is. And are we going to go back to a situation where we have no voice in our industry? So I think we need to be very supportive in what we've done and how we're doing things, and make sure that we follow this. And yes, we have some positive and negatives, but we're learning. This is just something that's going to evolve, and we learn. So thank you very much. I think from my side, Lee, thank you. And any questions, off we go.
Great, thanks, Steve. I'm just going to move on because I know we're a bit over time from that perspective. So I'm just going to skip the slide. It was just a quick summary slide. And this is basically the end, guys. But there is a couple of questions that have come through, and I'm not going to actually go through all of them. We will specifically go back and answer them. But one thing that keeps thrown basically from one side in the specific sector, but it's only from one quarter. I can see it. He's saying that, well, why must we do all this stuff when the bucket plumbers are out there doing nothing? Right. Well, we just said in the beginning, did we not, saying that the difference between a bucket plumber was that a bucket plumber is an unqualified person while we are qualified people, right? And that's the main difference. So if you wish to be a bucket plumber, well, then continue in that specific manner, not adding value to yourself, because eventually we're going to get to a point where we're all going to be qualified, and what is going to distinguish between ourselves? And further to this is that we're all looking at, again, and I keep saying it, we're all looking at from ourselves. It's all about me, the individual, and all that stuff. We need to look at it as a bigger point of view. We need to look at it from a bigger perspective, not just from an individual point of view. And yes, a lot of people are saying, they keep saying, but it's going to cost me money. It's not going to cost you money. Go back, go and look what Steve said, and go and do the sums. Go and work out how you can actually do it. What takes you from reading the Plumbing Africa magazine and answering a couple of questions? What stops you from writing a technical argument? What stops? Nobody has said to you that you had to go and do webinars. Nobody has ever said that to you, right? You choose what continuous professional development you have to do, as long as it's in the line of the industry as perspective. Remember I spoke to you about baking cakes? There's no point in doing and trying to go and learn how to bake cakes which doesn't add value to the sector as a whole. Go to when you do a product training course, right? And for those manufacturers are on here. When you as an individual go to a manufacturer, or a manufacturer comes to you and gives you product training, ask them, is it CPD accredited? Yes or no? And if it's not, encourage them to get CPD accredited so you can gain the points. It's not going to cost you anything. It's going to cost your time. It's going to cost your effort. And that is the biggest thing. At the end of the day, it's people do not want to move out of their comfort zones, right? At the end of the day, and a very important, I won't say very important, but somebody advocated this to me, in which I thought it was a quite nice way to look at it. We have 8 hours in our lives that we work, generally. 8 hours that we sleep, generally. The question is, what are you going to do with those other 8 hours? And look at it like this. CPD if you break it down, it's basically 0.5 CPD points is equal to 1 hour, right? So a lot of questions are also coming about how many CPD points do we have to obtain throughout the year, right? It's on the website, guys. All the stuff that we've advocated, you go to the website, download it, email cpd@prrb.co.za, and they will send you the information. I repeat that, cpd@prrb.co.za, and they will send you. It is all there. All the information, the number of CPD points that you have to obtain is there. 0.5 points for 1 hour. So don't work out how many hours you need to just contribute to enrich yourself for your benefit. Continuous professional development should be viewed as an investment. It's about the investment in yourself. CPD is the added, or are the added attractions. The CPD points are only the added attractions to that. With that, guys, I'm not going to go any. There is a couple of questions that, as I said, have been thrown in there, like Ms. Bell has indicated that SABS standards 6,000 Rand per set. We understand that. You know, it's a government organization. We are trying. You do get the smaller versions. There is the PRRB and IOPS have got smaller versions of SANS, which they have condensed that specific thing. So ask for that as well. You know, have a look at it. But anyway, guys, I think that's it for this evening. We do have a couple of questions. We will specifically go back and answer these specific things. You know, each and every one, I will make sure that they will get a response to. And with that, without further ado, I'd like to just let me just switch my webcam on there. I'd just like to thank you very much for joining us. I hope that we have got a little bit more information across to you guys. Please pass this on to other people, advocate it, but ask the questions, guys. You know, come back and ask the PRRB. But don't fight the process, because if you're going to fight the process, we're going to get the PRRB is going to get their back up against the wall. Come back, ask the questions, and we'll answer them correctly. But you know what? The information has already been there. It's been 12 months down the line that this information has been passed through, pushed through, and advocated out there. But because it's getting closer to the time, now people are saying they haven't known of this, they haven't been brought up, the information has been sent out. But without further ado, thank you very much. Thank you very much to Steve. Steve, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. And again, just to say thank you very much to everybody. If anybody wants to give me a call also to talk about it personally, my number is available on the site, so I'm quite prepared to take phone calls, questions, and go one-on-one. So out there, Lee, if the guys want to have it, I'm certainly available to assist wherever possible. I think, so if there's anybody there that wants to do it, please give me a call.
Great, thank you. Thanks a lot. And thank you very much to Richard in the background, and then to Patrick again, just coordinating in the controls there at in Bloemfontein. Thank you very much. Good night, guys, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Take care. Thank you. Bye.
There is a survey afterwards. If I can just ask it, if you guys can just answer the survey, I'll really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.